Thank you for subscribing to my channel and liking my videos. Today's video, I'll explain if the Villages has a homeowners association, an HOA. Let's take a walk on the Miracle Mile here at Lake Meona Rec Center. Welcome friends, here we are at the Black Lake Walking Path. This is better known as the Miracle Mile here in the Villages, Florida. You can see the hours are 7 a.m. to dusk. This path is relatively new. This was created, I believe, 1 year ago, where the residents of the Villages community, they wanted additional walking paths here in the middle and northern section of the Villages. When the Villages developed the southern area of the Villages, like in the Fenny area, for example, they created a lot of walking paths in the southern part of the Villages. And when the residents here in the northern part of the Villages and the middle section of the Villages, when the residents caught wind of that, they approached the developer and said, "We would like walking paths in the northern part of the Villages as well." So they essentially negotiated with the developer to create this walking trail. This is at the Lake Meona Rec Center. This is very near Sumter Landing. So this walking trail is on the west side of Buena Vista Boulevard. Buena Vista Boulevard is over there. And this walking trail extends 1 mile to the north. And they call it the $1 million mile. The reason they call it the $1 million mile is because this project was originally budgeted to be completed for less than $1 million. And over the course of time, as the project continued, the cost and the estimated costs of this project kept going up. And the cost of this project ended up to be nearly $1 million. So the community last year dubbed this the $1 million mile walking path. Look at this beautiful oak tree with Spanish moss. How gorgeous is that? So today's walk and talk video, I'll try to address the question that was posed to me. Does the Villages have an HOA? A homeowners association? And the simple answer is no. The Villages does not have a homeowners association. A homeowners association is a group of private individuals that has the authority to create and enforce policies and rules. By definition, that's what an HOA is. Here in the Villages is formed by using community development districts. As the developer builds homes, he creates a community development district. And for the sake of argument, I will just say that there are 15 residential community development districts in the Villages. Districts 1 through 4 are located north of County Road 466. That's the northern part of the Villages. District number 5 through 11 are located in the middle section of the Villages. That's between the sixes. That's between Highway 466 and 466A. Community Development Districts 12, 13, 14, and 15 are located south of County Road 466A. So right now the villages are kind of divided into three major areas: the north, the middle, and the south. So the community development districts, each district has its own governing board of supervisors. And I discussed that in a previous video. So please refer to that video. I show you where on the internet you can look for your respective county board or district board supervisors. So as this relates to an HOA, these districts, these community development districts, as they are governed under state statute 190 here in the state of Florida, they kind of act as your HOA. Although they don't have the full authority of a traditional HOA in a 55 plus community, because these districts really do not have the authority to create their own policies. As the developer builds homes and creates these community development districts, he essentially will sell a group of homes to the community development district. That community development district will pay the owner for the development of the area, of the community, by taking out a bond. And that's where your bond payments come into play. I mentioned in a previous video that the bonds, each home will have a bond attached to it. These bonds essentially are when the community development district goes to market, they essentially issue a bond, which essentially is obtaining a loan. These bonds usually are issued by someone on Wall Street, and the Villages has a very, very good credit rating, by the way. So the district will issue the bond, essentially take a loan out. They will pay the developer, and they will essentially create a community development district. That district is limited in size, I believe in both acreage and in population. So each district issues bonds for the homes, for the infrastructure that was built in that district. So that is how a community development district is formed. The developer creates a district. He sells the district essentially to the community development district, who issues the bond to pay the developer. Once the developer transfers ownership of the district, of those homes, of that area, to the district, that developer also associates and creates deed restrictions. That developer essentially dictates what things can and cannot be done to those homes through the deed restrictions. So the deed restrictions really is a contract between the homeowner and the developer. And how this relates to an HOA is, generally HOAs have the authority to create policy and then to enforce policy. Here in the Villages, the community development districts, they really only have the authority to enforce the policies that were created by the developer. So to answer the question that was asked, does the Villages have an HOA? The answer is really no. The Villages has community development districts with a board of supervisors that enforce the policies and the deed restrictions that the developer imposed and created. So the Community Development District Board of Supervisors essentially has less authority than a board of supervisors under a traditional homeowners association. That's why when people ask me, what are the HOA fees? The real answer is the Villages doesn't have an HOA. They have fees that residents pay that would be similar to what an HOA fee is. But there really is no homeowners association that represents the owners here in the Villages, Florida. There is a district board of supervisors, and currently, for the sake of argument, I'm going to say that there are 15 residential districts formed right now in the Villages. So there are 15 different board of supervisors that has the authority to enforce the rules and the deed restrictions that the developer created at the time they sold the district to the Community Development District. It is a transaction. The developer has formal paperwork. They sell those homes in that village, that area, to the district, and the district is responsible, and they sign and agree with the developer to maintain those districts based on the rules that the developer has established. This is Black Lake. Here we go. At least we have one resident using the $1 Million Mile walking path. This is a very nice walking path, by the way. There were some issues with this walking path when they first made it. There were some low spots in this walking path, and when it rained, when there was heavy rains, the walking path would get washed out. They would have to repair it. Some of the residents were disgruntled with this construction of the walking path in terms of the quality. So in certain spots where it was low and the rain washed it out, they had to raise this path. So there was quite a debate about this Miracle Mile walking path last year. Black Lake. Very nice. So as I mentioned in previous videos, the residents pay fees that are similar to an HOA fee. Those three fees are amenity fees, $195 per month. And that pays for the amenities, the recreational amenities like the swimming pools, pickleball courts, things like that. They also pay a maintenance fee. That maintenance fee is an annual fee that you pay on your property tax bill. Those fees are to cover the cost to maintain the common areas of your particular district. And each district has its own unique budget that estimates the costs to maintain that district for the year. And the Village's administration and budget office, they will work closely with the property management team who provides estimates as to what it's going to cost to maintain that particular district. And they put together a budget, and that budget is then used to calculate your maintenance fees for each home. But the big difference is that the Board of Supervisors for that particular district Wow, look at this butterfly. How unique is that? So the board of directors for each district is in charge of creating and approving that budget. And they have very limited authority to change the policies. Their main objective is to enforce the rules and the deed restrictions that the owner established when they sold the district. There are organizations in the villages that kind of act like an HOA. There's two major organizations. One's called the Property Owners Association of the Villages. And here is their bulletin. They produce, I think, a monthly bulletin or bi-monthly bulletin. There is a membership fee of $15 a year to be a member of the Property Owners Association. And essentially, the Property Owners Association, if you decide to become a member of it, their main goal is to be a watchdog group and represent the owners of the villages. All of the villages, all the districts. So you can live in any district and you could pay a annual membership fee of $15. And you could be part of the Property Owners Association, which is nothing more than a watchdog group. They monitor the local legal and governmental entities. They will monitor the activities at the county government level. They will monitor some of the decisions the developer is making. They will monitor the decisions that some of the district boards are making as well. And they will publish a bulletin like this and try to explain to the residents in layman's terms what is going on. And I think even give them advice as to how to vote on certain things. I know last year the Property Association, the Property Owners Association, they were giving advice on developing, on when the villages wanted to create a new governmental entity for the fire and safety. That was a hot topic last year. And the POA was monitoring that. They do hold meetings periodically that you can attend. But again, their authority is limited and is limited to being only a watchdog group to provide you, the residents, with information and advice on certain things and how to vote on certain things. There's also a second association that you could be a member of, and usually the residents are a member of one or the other, generally not both. There is something called the Villages Homeowners Association. I will leave the links in the description of this video so you can research this on your own. And the Villages Homeowners Association pretty much acts the same as the Property Owners Association. The big difference between those two associations is that one is more biased toward the developer than the other. One seems to be less biased or neutral. That would be the Property Owners Association. They seem to be less biased. The Villages Homeowners Association, they seem to be a little more biased toward the developer. But that is something that you should research for yourself. But at the end of the day, both associations have very limited authority. They essentially act as watchdog or advisory groups. They certainly are not an HOA, nor do they have the authority of an HOA. So the answer to the question is no, the Villages does not have an HOA. The Villages is set up differently. The Villages is set up through Statute 190 in the state of Florida, community development districts. An HOA essentially is a private entity where the developer will develop it and then sell the property to the homeowners association. The homeowners association has complete authority to establish policy, enforce policy, where here the community development district really only has the authority to enforce policies, and they have very limited ability to establish policy. I know one of the hot topics over the last year or two here in the Villages, in each community development district, each one of the 15 community development districts has debated regarding how deed compliances are reported and how infractions to the deed compliance rules are reported. Initially, the developer created a complaint-driven deed compliance system, and that's how this is. So if one neighbor has a problem with another neighbor in terms of violating a deed compliance, that neighbor would call the community development district that they reside in and file a complaint. Initially, the developer has created a complaint system where the complainant does not have to leave their name or address. So you could file a complaint and you wouldn't need to leave your name or address. So it's anonymous. So it's an anonymous complaint system. So what some of the districts have been discovering is that some residents are filing 10 and 20 and 30 complaints a day. Because it's so easy to do. They can just call, file a complaint, and hang up. But some of the districts are catching onto it, and some of the district boards have implemented a requirement that the complainant needs to leave their name and address. And some of these districts, when they implement the complaint system that's not anonymous, have discovered that the number of complaints filed every year has gone down dramatically. Every complaint that's filed with the district needs to be investigated. And the Villages or the community development districts were utilizing a lot of resources investigating anonymous complaints. So the district boards had decided in some districts, not all districts, you need to be aware of what district you live in and what the rules are to file a complaint. I know in District 5, for instance, District 5 Board of Supervisors last year, or is it 2 years ago, they passed a resolution that requires that the resident needs to leave their name and address when they file a complaint. And I know in District 5, the number of complaints filed has gone down dramatically. Other districts, like District 6, are also investigating possibly changing the rules from anonymous complaints to a complaint system where they have to leave their name and address, because it's causing these districts and the district government to expend a lot of resources investigating these complaints. So that's one example that the district board has some authority to change some of the policies. So they could change the policy from anonymous complaints to a complainant that has to leave their name. But they cannot change anything related to the deed restrictions themselves, because that's a contract that's between the property owner and the developer at the time the house is bought. So I hope this helped clarify whether the Villages has an HOA or not. And the short answer is no, they do not. They have a community development district board of supervisors that has limited authority. It does not have the scope of authority that a traditional HOA would have. They also have organizations that act as watchdog groups, like the POA, that can help guide residents in making decisions when there are large decisions to be made and when there are things to vote on, because occasionally things will come up, like the fire and safety, where the Villages will ask residents to vote. So these watchdog groups will advise residents what's in their best interest, but they certainly do not have the authority of an HOA. Thanks for joining. Thanks for subscribing. I hope this helped clear things up. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you for watching this video regarding does the Villages have an HOA or not. Thank you for subscribing to my channel and liking my videos. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.